PreProduction.
Hey, this is Doc Kennedy with Filmmakers Focus, and today I want to share with you 6 tips for making your first documentary film. I'd made my first documentary about 4 years ago. It was a scenario where I had never really made a film of any length. Definitely the first project I was directing by myself. It was a creation of my own. I had total creative freedom, and it was a fun project to take on, even though the topic was a little bit heavy. The film is called 360, and it centered around a woman named Christine who had been trafficked in the United States, starting in Tacoma when she was a teenager. This isn't one of the tips, but I will say knowing the why will really impact how your final product is portrayed. I cared about the subject, I cared about Christine, and wanted to give her the best that I could. And also knowing that this was going to be featured downtown on a big screen, and that she was going to be using it down the road, and she does today, as a part of talks that she gives on human trafficking. So of course, when you know your why, that'll take you far. If you care about your why, that's a huge first step. But let's dive in here. So my first tip is pre-production. Make it good. Christine and I met a couple of times. We talked about her story. I saw pictures. She gave me the whole rundown of everything that happened. And when you watch the film, we're only able to tell the first quarter might be stretching it, of her story because we didn't have the finances to go to the cities that she was trafficked to. And also there was a time limit on the project. We had 30 days to do this, and the film couldn't be anything that would be of serious length. So it tops out at about 11 minutes. But the pre-production process, that was my first time doing that too. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood the story completely from her point of view. And then we could sit down, and this is going to be my tip number 2. Film a foundation to build your story on. I did that for this film, and it worked great because I had something to then build on. You need that foundation. You have to have that base, or you won't be able to build from that. It also helps you in imagining where else you can go with things, because documentaries can be a little bit, they might not go the way that you think they might. It's not completely scripted most of the time. It's going to be people telling their point of view on something. So you might hear something that comes out of their mouth that you're like, oh my gosh, now I can run with this in this way that I hadn't even thought before. So I shot this interview with Christine, and then from that was able to build around that. We shot for about 45 minutes, and I took about the best 8 minutes or so, maybe even 5 to 7. And then we built from that. But make sure you have that good foundation to build on, that foundation of story. You'll see that in Ken Burns films. Civil War comes to mind. Ken Burns' Civil War. He has a gentleman named Shelby Foote. And Shelby's kind of he's the foundation. He's the guy that knows the history. He's the one that's really sharing the story. There's a lot of other people involved, but he is the foundation. His portion is really the foundation of what makes the whole film flow. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. Anything Ken Burns does is, of course, stellar, but Civil War was just on another level, especially for its time. Anyway, back to what we're doing here. So tip number 3, get lots of good B footage. A lot of times when you're doing documentaries, you're going to have people that are not particularly comfortable in front of the camera, or they're just not accustomed to it. Maybe they're comfortable, but they just don't have that voice. That happens numerous times. So the best way to cover that up is going to be with music, which we'll talk about in a sec, but also solid B footage. So it's B footage that's helping steer the story. The B footage that I shot in 360 was all footage of areas in Tacoma that human trafficking happens now or it happened in the past. And it really helped me, as the filmmaker, share my point of view. Now, people might not know that that these are the hot spots, but we can tell them. And when they see that, it's like, wow, it's an added dimension. Because these streets are part of the story in this case. But that B footage will help steer the story. It'll help keep the viewer engaged. It'll just take away from what might be a little bit more, I don't want to say boring, but it's a little bit more dull if you're just watching someone talk. Tip number 4, fill in the gaps as needed. So when I shot with Christine, we did the foundation, and then we went out, we shot her talking while she was driving, showing me different spots that she had gone to school, where she had lived as a kid, different spots of town where she had been prostituted. So this just helped build the story, help fill in gaps of the interview to help steer the story, and it gave a different perspective. So there's another point in the film towards the end where she talks about where she had been after Tacoma. And for us, that was helping kind of put a bow on the story. So fill in the gaps as needed, take notes, maybe even write a little scripted piece, and help tie the story together as needed. Tip number 5 is music. And with 360, this was 4 or 5 years ago, the music is okay. It doesn't really hold up. It's not music bed type stuff. It's a little bit on the lower end. It's not horrible, but you definitely need good music to help steer the story. Again, it just helps take away the lack of excitement that might be with someone talking. Another thing that I would recommend with music, good ambient sound. There's a part in the film where you hear traffic going by. I wish I would have done more of that. There's a ton of stuff I wish I would have done, but that's one of the things I would do different, is I would use more ambient sound as well to help steer the environment, help put people in that environment of being on the streets. So if you're doing something that's regarding farming, I'd have birds chirping, different just ambient sounds and help put the person in that spot. So tip number 6, and I think this is probably the most important. Remember, this is only your first. You got to start somewhere. So remember, this is just your first. It's a great way to learn. To me, there's no better way to learn than learning on the job. And you just go out there, you tell your story, tell it the best way you can. I'd put a deadline on it. With film, you can be editing till doomsday if you'd like. Put a deadline on it and be willing to say good enough, walk away from it, and move on to your next, because your next is going to be better. The next one will be better than that, and so on. But don't be afraid to take that chance. Step out, tell a story you feel needs to be told, and have fun. Have fun with the people that you're working with. When we shot the foundation piece, I had 3 other people on set that were excited to be a part of it. They were excited to help share this story. Christine's out impacting lives, and they were excited to be a part of that. So I'll wrap it up with that. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, @FilmmakersFocus. And I look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions regarding documentary work, I'm more than willing to share whatever I can to help steer you in a direction that you'd like to go. I look forward to seeing your first films. I'd love to see them posted and get them out there. We want to be able to share this stuff. 360 on YouTube has right around 15,000 views. And I know it's been sitting there for 4 years now, but that's pretty good for that long of a piece, when we know people don't want to watch anything that's usually longer than 3 minutes, for them to tune into something that's 11 minutes. And we're getting feedback on that. So it's been a real positive all around. So get your story out there. Let us help share it with you. And I look forward to hearing from you.